大家好，欢迎回到我们的频道。Welcome back to Miffy Chinese. Today, we're moving on to the final part of Lesson 4. First, let's get started with a quick warm-up. Please listen to the dialogue and choose the correct answer from options A, B, and C.
菲菲，这是您儿子吗？
是的，我有两个孩子，一个儿子，一个女儿。
您儿子几岁？
他今年5岁，
您女儿多大？
他今年12。
Were you able to find the answers? Let's take a look together. For the first one, the correct answer is B, 两个. She has 2 children. And for the second one, the correct answer is B, 12. They're talking about the age of her daughter, so it should be 12, 12 years old. Now, let's hear the text again.
菲菲，这是您儿子吗？
是的，我有两个孩子，一个儿子，一个女儿。
您儿子几岁？
他今年5岁，
您女儿多大？
他今年12。
Now that we've heard the text, let's see what you can remember. Based on what we just listened to, try to answer these 2 questions. Number 1, 菲菲有几个儿子？几个女儿？ Number 2, 菲菲儿子今年几岁？菲菲儿子今年几岁？ Okay, let's take a look at the answers. 菲菲有一个儿子，一个女儿。According to the text, Fei Fei has 1 son and 1 daughter. Number 2, 菲菲儿子今年5岁。Fei Fei's son is 5 years old this year. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to ask someone's age in Chinese. In China, asking about age is actually a common part of daily conversation. It's not usually meant to be nosy or intrusive. Rather, it's a way to facilitate better communication. Sometimes people ask so they know the proper way to address you and avoid being disrespectful. Other times, it helps them choose the right topics to chat about. But remember, depending on who you're talking to, the way you ask will change. In our previous lessons, we learned that both 几 and 多少 mean how many or how much. However, 几 is specifically for quantities under 10, while 多少 is for numbers over 10 or when the amount is unknown. When it comes to asking about age, we have a similar rule. 几岁 is used to ask about the age of children under 10 years old. For people over 10 years old, we generally ask 多大 instead of 几岁. Let's look at some examples. 你儿子几岁？你儿子几岁？ How old is your son? In this sentence, we're asking about the other person's son. Since we know we're talking about a young child, we use the phrase 几岁. Number 2, 你姐姐多大？你姐姐多大？ Here, the question is about an older sister. Since we're talking about someone who is clearly over 10 years old and no longer a small child, we use the phrase 多大. Next, let's go ahead and learn the new vocabulary for this lesson. Our first word is 儿子, 儿子, which means son. Next one, 孩子, 孩子, children. 女儿, 女儿, daughter. Pay attention to the pronunciation here. 女儿,女儿. Next one, 岁,岁, year of age. For example, 3岁, 3 years old. Next one, 他, he or him. It is the same in Chinese. He and him are both 他. While we're talking about family and people, let's take a quick moment to review some other third-person pronouns we've encountered. Besides the masculine 他, we also have the feminine 他in the version used for objects, animals, or abstract concepts, 他. You'll notice that they all share the exact same pronunciation, 他. But even though they sound identical, their written characters and meanings are completely different. Moving on, 今年,今年, this year. Next, 多, how, to what extent. When we use 多 in a phrase, we've already learned that 多少 means how many or how much. However, we can also use the combination 多大 to ask about someone's age. We typically use this specific phrasing in situations where the person is over 10 years old. That brings us to our final word, 大, which literally means big. In the context we just discussed, 多大, it functions as a way to ask how many years old. So even though it usually describes size, here it's all about someone's age. Okay, let's do a quick exercise to consolidate everything we've just learned. Please look at the screen. You will see 5 blanks below. Your task is to choose the correct answer for each of them from the 5 options provided: A, B, C, D, and E. I highly suggest you pause the video right here, take your time to think it through, and fill in those 5 blanks. Once you're ready to check your work, go ahead and hit play. We will go through the answers together. All right, let's take a look at the answers together. For the first one, the sentence is 王美美老师有个学生. Since we need to fill in a specific number here, the correct choice is B, 20, which means 20. Next, the second sentence is 米米家有4人. Remember, when we're talking about the number of family members, we need that specific measure word we learned earlier. So the answer is D, 口. Moving on to the third one. 菲菲,我有2个孩子,你,米米,我孩子. In this context, the speaker is bouncing the question back to ask about her situation. Because we're asking the same thing back, we choose A, 呢. Here, the speaker is saying they do not have children. To express this negativity or absence of something, we use C, 没. And finally, the last one, 菲菲,您女儿今年多?米米,我女儿今年12. Since we're talking about the age of a daughter who is likely older than a small child, we use the phrase we just studied. The correct answer is E, 大, completing the phrase 多大. All right, that's it. How many did you get right? If you had any trouble with these, feel free to rewind and review those specific language points again. To wrap up today's lesson, I've prepared some homework for you to practice what we've learned. Please take a moment to complete these exercises after class. You're more than welcome to post your answers in the comments section below. We will be happy to check them over and give you some feedbacks. It's a great way to make sure you've really mastered the difference between 几 and 多大, or when to use the special measure word 口. I can't wait to see your responses. Last but not the least, here is the Hanzi chart for lesson 4. So you should be able to recognize these Hanzi after this lesson. Remember, according to the official new HSK standards, you should be able to recognize more or less 300 Hanzi to accomplish HSK 1. So let's start the journey now and learn a few every lesson. Okay, that's it for lesson 4. See you in lesson 5. 再见。